Welcome back. In this video we are going to set up the authentication system, at least signing up, because we need both ways, right? We need to be able to sign up, and then we also need to be able to sign in. And of course, in order to be able to sign in, we need to have a user with the data, and so we need to sign up before. Okay, so if you want to know all about it, I in general would recommend to check out the documentation. Anytime that you work with something, check out the documentation to get a better understanding of what is going on and how things work and so forth. So here, for example, in the documentation, you can go to guides, and then in Android or under Android, use a custom auth system. So a custom authentication system, and there you can check out how it's done. So you need to add something to your build.gradle, which is this implementation here. And then when you scroll down, you will see that you can find the code in Java and in Kotlin for Android, and it just shows you what kind of code you will need in order to create a new user. Okay, so we're gonna set all of that up. I would still recommend to check out what you can see here. So email link authentication. So if you want the user to be able to only authenticate via a link once he registered, or if you want to allow Facebook login or Google sign in. So you can see there are many different options available here, but we're just going to use this custom auth system, custom authentication system, which is a email system. So it's going to be very basic and simple for our testing purposes. But at this point, you should be able to read through documentations and use other kind of authentications here. For example, if you want to use the Facebook login, you can find the code here, and it will show you how you can implement that to your code or to your project. All right, so of course you need to have a project in Firebase, and therefore you need to have a Google Mail account or Gmail account. And you can go to the console via the button here at the top right, or you can just go to console.firebase.google.com and then log in with your account. And by this, of course, I mean your Google Mail account. Okay, then you can create a new project. And by the way, if you want to create projects, you have to have a payment system or payment data in the background. So you need to set things up in Google for this to work. Okay, it's not going to cost you as long as you're not using, or as long as you don't have hundreds or thousands of users who are using your application. Only at that point it will start to cost. But if you want to know more about it, definitely check out the payment structure of Google Firebase. All right, so at this point we can give it a name, and I'm just going to call this one Projet Manage or Projet Manag. And then you can see it gives me this internal name, Projet Manage 96 EDB. So let's continue. Then you can implement the Google Analytics for Firebase projects, which will give you A/B testing features, crash for free users, features, and so forth. So we can just leave it installed or leave it active. You can see it's free, unlimited reporting. Then press continue. And here you need to assign a Google Analytics account if you have one. Otherwise, you need to create a Google Analytics account at this point. So I'm just going to choose mine that I already have, and I'm going to create the project. This can then take a little while, but as soon as it's ready, we can go ahead and use it. All right, there we are. It says your new project is ready. So let's go ahead and continue. So there is our Projet Manage project, and you can see that we have a bunch of options here on the left-hand side, which is pretty good because we first of all need, of course, authentication, because we need to create users and then, of course, authenticate them. Then you can see here we have something called the database. We have storage, functions, machine learning kit, and hosting. The ones that we're going to be in is going to be authentication, database, and storage. And when it comes to the database, there are different options. So there is this option of the real-time database, and there is this option of the Cloud Firestore. We're going to look into the differences later on, but But for now, just know that we're going to use a Cloud Firestore because our application is going to use a many-to-many relationship. And when you have something like that, then Cloud Firestore is a lot easier to handle and also a lot more performant than a real-time database. But in short, if you have an application which just displays a very limited amount of data, or where there's no direct relationship between every user and another user, or a user and another board in our case, and so forth, then the real-time database might be the better choice for you because it's just made for these kind of applications. Okay. For now, however, let's go back to our project. Let's go to our build.gradle, but this time the project one. And here we need to have a new class dependency. So let's add a new dependency, and the one that we're going to use is this one. Okay, so it's going to be com.google.gms :google-services :4.3.3 is the one that we're going to use here. So once you've added that, sync it. Okay, so sync the project. And then we need to add a plugin once the Gradle process is done in our build.gradle, which is the module app. So you can see currently we are in the project one, but then we also have this module app one. And here I need to add a new plugin. And the plugin that I'm going to use is the following. So apply plugin com.google.gms :google-services. All right. And the next thing is we will also need to implement a dependency. Okay. So in this same file, scroll down all the way to your dependencies and then add this implementation here. Okay. Implementation com.google.firebase :firebase -auth :19.2.0. Once you've added that, also sync it. So let's synchronize it. All right, next thing is that we're going to set up a new activity. And before we do that, I think it makes sense to clean up our project folders a little bit. So currently we just have this one folder in which we have all of our activities, but now we are going to also add models and helper classes and so forth. So let's go ahead and create new packages here. So one is going to be the activities package, and I want to drag all of those activities inside of this activities class or activities folder, and then we need to refactor, and it says can't move multiple ones, so let's move one by one. Refactor, and then the next one, and so forth. So we need to drag all of those in there because, as I said, we will have multiple more classes, and it's going to be something like 20. So it really makes sense to have it all tidy and separated so that it's easier to find everything you need once you need it. All right, so these are the activities, and then we also need to create a new folder. So new directory, also a new package, and it's not going to be inside of activities. It's going to be model or models. And then let's create a new one, new package, and I'm going to call this one utils. And for now, let's just leave it with that. Okay, so inside of activities, I will create a new activity. And this one will be an activity that we're going to use to reuse several functions that we're going to need in multiple different activities. Okay, so let's go ahead and call this one BaseActivity. BaseActivity. And the first thing that I'm gonna add in here is the R. So we need to import R. Okay, then as you can see, it's inside of our activities. So this BaseActivity is basically gonna be our replacement for the app compat activity for our other activities. Okay, so currently our activities are inheriting from app compat activity. If you look at intro activity, for example, you can see it's inheriting from app compat activity. If you look at all of our other activities, they all do. But now if we want to put something in between, which we can then reuse all the time, then we can just make everything inherit from our base activity. So let's just do that. Let's say that it should inherit from base activity. Now at this point we need to make base activity open, so let's look at it. You can see now it's an open class base activity, and we will later on do that for all the other activities, okay? But for now, let's go ahead and create a variable here, which I'm going to use for tracking the back button functionality. So double back to exit pressed once is how I'm going to call it. Set to false. So the idea is if the user pressed back twice, then the application should close, just as an example. Then I need a dialog. So I'm going to create a late init variable called mProgress dialog, which will be a dialog. Okay, so the idea behind this dialog is that we want to display a progress dialog to the user each time that something is loading. And this will pretty much happen in every activity, right? So the user wants to sign in. Of course, it's not going to happen instantly. It's going to take a little while. So even if it's just a couple of milliseconds, but still, it's good to have something that displays to the user there's something happening in the background. Okay, such as logging in, such as storing the data, such as loading the data, those kind of things. So we are going to require this. And we have used this quite a lot already, right? So we have worked with progress dialogues multiple times. So I think I'm not going to surprise you when I add this progress dialog function here, where I'm assigning or initializing our mProgress dialog, which is this late init variable, with a new dialog. Then I'm setting the progress dialog content view to be a dialog progress, which we still need to set up. Inside of that, we have a TV progress text, which we assign the text to that we pass to the show progress dialog function. Okay, and then of course we show this dialog. So let's create this layout. So this dialog progress XML file, let's go ahead and create that. So let's press OK, and here basically it's just going to be the progress bar with a text view, as we have used it multiple times in this course already. We will need some more dimensions, so let's add the dimensions and texts to our project as well. So here, values, dimensions. So here at the very bottom, I'm just going to add those 4 dimensions here: progress dialog content padding, progress bar size, progress text margin start, and progress text size. Okay, so going back to our dialog progress, it's just missing the string. So let's go over to the strings as well, and let's add this little string in here. So the string should be, actually we have 2 strings that we're gonna need. One is gonna be please click back again to exit, and the other one is gonna please wait. Okay, now in our dialog progress, you can see it's just this little progress icon and then the please wait text. So a text view, and before that a progress bar, which is this circular item that we have there. And in my case, it's complaining about this progress text. So let's import it from our progress dialog. Okay, so this is going to be the function to show a progress dialog. Now let's add the function to hide the progress dialog. So it's basically just going to be dismissing our progress dialog. And then what we will need is to get the current user ID. And this is going to be the first time where we're actually going to use Firebase. So fun, new function, get current user ID, which will return a string. So it's going to be a unique user ID that we will get as a result. And it should return Firebase authentication. So auth get instance current user. And from the current user, the unique ID. Okay, so let's import Firebase for this to work. So this is how we can get the current user ID. We will need that in order to display the relevant data. So of course we only want to show the user the projects that he's assigned to, and the tasks that he's assigned to, and nothing else, right? So that's the idea behind this. Then we need a function to double back to exit. So if somebody presses the back button twice, he should just close the application. So we're just going to check if double back to exit pressed once is true. If it's true, then do the super on back pressed function and return. And then otherwise, or on top of that, this double back to exit pressed once, I'm going to set that to true, because at that point it already would have been pressed. So let's say we press it again. So if it was pressed already, then he would go back. But if he only pressed back once, then we want to display something to the user. So it's not really going to close the application directly, but it's just going to display to the user a little toast. Okay, so when he pressed back once, it's just going to say, please click back once again to exit the application. So the first click is just going to show this text, and the second click will actually do the on back pressed functionality. So we don't want the user to accidentally close the activity that he's in, and that's how we can make sure of that. All right, and then we want this to happen with a little delay. So if the user didn't press back for a little while, then we want to reset everything. So reset the back button functionality, so to speak. Okay, so let's say you pressed once, and then 20 seconds later you press again, and then suddenly you won't see this screen anymore. So what we can do is we can use the handler again. We could just say handler, do something a little bit delayed. So let's import handler real quick so that we can actually use it. Handler Android OS, this one, and then use post delayed, and here we can run some code. And the code that I want to run is I want to double press to exit false after 2000 milliseconds. So basically, if the user pressed back twice, the back button twice within 2 seconds, then it will close the application or close the activity that he's in, depending on where he is. Okay, so that's the idea behind this whole double back to exit function. And then I want to display the errors to the user, but not just in a very super short toast, but actually in a snack bar. Okay, so if the user gets an error for some reason, I don't know, the internet connection doesn't work or the operation didn't work, then we want to display an error. And that should be available in all functions, right? Or in all of our activities, to be precise. So we want to have a message that we want to display when we call this function, and we want to display this message as a snack bar. So let's create a snack bar here. If you don't know what a snack bar is, check out the video on snack bars. So basically it's a little text at the bottom of the screen that says something to the user. In our case, I want to use snackbar.make, and here find view by ID Android RID dot content, then after the closing bracket the message that we want to display, then snackbar dot length long. Okay, so let me put that into multiple lines so that's a little more readable. So we create the snack bar, we make it, we find the view by ID Android content, so we display it in the content, we display the message that we prepared, and we display the snack bar for a comparatively long time, even though it's just going to be a couple of seconds. Okay, and then I need a snack bar view, which will be my snack bar dot view. And I need that snack bar view in order to, for example, set my individual background color. So if you want to have an individual background color, you can do that this way. Okay, so in an error, it might make sense to change the color to, for example, a red color. Okay, so here I'm gonna say context compat get color for this, and r.color.snackbar error color. Of course, we need to set that color up. So let's import the context compat, and then let's create this color. All right, so let's create color resource, snack bar color. And actually maybe not this way, but let's go to r.colors. Here in our resources, values, colors XML, and let's add that snack bar. So here color name snack bar error color, which will be hash F72400, which is going to be a very red color. All right, so let's see, the error disappeared. All right, that's very good. Okay, and then of course we need to show this snack bar. All right, so just preparing it is not going to be enough. So we prepared the snack bar, we edited the snack bar view. So this is how we edited how the snack bar is going to look, right? But then we need to display the snack bar by showing it. Okay, snack bar show. All right, so I'd say we make a pause here because it's going to be another part where we actually are going to set up the signing up feature. And yeah, let's just go there. See you in the next video.